And I hope that Judith Hermes is already mic'd up.
Hi.
Thank you so much joining us today. And I'm seeing you're wearing your sneakers because you have to be.
Okay.
Oh, you have to be quick on your feet in the job you're doing, not just running from one location to the other, but also quick on your feet with negotiations, I would assume.
True. Yeah.
So, if I may invite you to the stage.
What's that? Okay.
And we are going to move a little bit closer to each other.
Okay, can I help you? Oh, no problem.
So, Judith, we didn't clear one thing beforehand. Is it okay to go first name?
Yeah, sure.
Basis? All right,
Sure.
very good. Judith, thank you so much for joining us today. You work for the German Treasury Department, the Finanzministerium, and you are responsible for lots of things, but very much also for G7 and G20 issues. The last G7 summit is not that long ago, but it feels already a long time ago because so many things happened in the meantime. With currently the NATO summit taking place. We love having you here because we can also pick your brain a little bit and get a feeling for how international governance actually works today. You were at the G7 finance minister meeting. You were also at the G7 meeting?
At the finance ministers, not at the summit, not in
yeah.
Kananaskis, but in Banff.
All right. But tell us a little bit about, before we get into the substance, your work. How is it, what do you do all day long? Do you have to get up really early to talk about all the financial issues which take place in the world and with our transatlantic partners? Do you ever sleep, or is it...
Yeah, I do sleep,
You
but
do.
less than when I'm back in Berlin. And what does it look like? You get to travel to fancy places like Bali for the G20 3 years ago, or now the Rocky Mountains, Banff, beautiful scenery, but you have no time to basically say anything, which was now in Banff not that bad because it was bear season and you weren't allowed to go anywhere without bear spray, and so it was okay to stay in the hotel and negotiate stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, and how does it work? Are all the statements already prepared beforehand, and is everything already done? And then you go to the ministers' meeting or the summit, and then just the signatures, or does it work in a way that you're still doing lots of work on the ground?
I mean, we have to do a lot of preparation beforehand, several rounds of written comments on a communique text. But usually we still have a lot of work to do on the ground, and that's what we also had to do in Banff. And then in the end, it's for ministers to give final touches to the text. That's how it usually works. Yeah. We're very happy we managed to land a communique. Maybe I can talk a bit more about this later.
Yeah, so maybe you can tell us now a little bit about the substance. So what are the main topics currently on the agenda of the G7 finance ministers? And where was actually the landing zone, and what was central to the statement?
So the main topics for the G7, as for the G20, is usually the development and outlook of the global economy. And as you can imagine, economic fragmentation, trade fragmentation is top of the agenda at the moment. And second most pressing issue in the G7 is the state of Ukraine. And state of Ukraine means for my finance ministers guaranteeing or ensuring that the financial support goes to Ukraine. But maybe starting with trade or economic fragmentation. As you can imagine, challenging times to discuss this in the G7. But the G7 is a format which has proved that it works in difficult times, that it is able to deliver meaningful results, that discussions take place in an intimate setting behind closed doors, That, of course, means that partners have to be willing to cooperate in a fair manner and make meaningful contributions. And it goes without saying that the G7, as all multilateral fora and institutions, are facing challenging times. But once again, finance ministers to manage to have this meaningful discussion, and I think the communiqué which we managed to land in Banff is a token for the public. It has some very meaningful language on what we want to achieve, overcoming trade fragmentation, fighting overcapacities which stem from non-market practices. But to be very clear, I think we can only advance our work in tackling these issues if we manage to resolve the issues we have within our group, meaning in particular the trade tensions due to the high tariffs imposed by the US.
And I heard that the German team went to Canada with a little bit of trepidation. So how did you actually manage to get a statement in the end?
It was very well prepared and managed by the Canadian hosts. So the success of G7 meetings, same holds true for G20 meetings, depends a lot on the commitment and the good and sometimes clever work of the presidency and the way they manage to forge compromises and get everyone to agree. But in the G7, there is a high commitment, spirit of compromise to get to the results.
And maybe to dig a little bit deeper on some of the issues on the agenda, we know that there's a lot of talk about the role of the dollar in the world as reserve currency, as transaction currency, devaluation of the dollar, maybe a changing role of the dollar. Were those topics which were discussed? Got you there.
Difficult question. I mean, the role of the dollar vis-à-vis the international role of the euro, and of course we all want to see a strengthening of the international role of the euro. This is an underlying theme, but it is not discussed in a very blunt manner.
And it is a difficult topic because whatever is said could have an impact on the global financial markets.
Yeah, and everything day, right? I will say here may have an impact. No. No, it is what we are discussing or what ministers discuss are the prospect for global growth, financial stability issues, and they all, of course, it all has to do with the role of the currency. But the currency as such is not discussed.
I still remember during the German G20 presidency and then also the summit in Hamburg and the really nice cultural event at the Symphony. Not all negotiators could participate in this cultural event. Yeah. There were two ranks which were still empty. On one hand, it was the people who were negotiating climate, and on the other, the negotiators for trade issues. But the rank of the finance negotiators, they were all there. Yeah. And I talked to them, and then they said, well, we were done really early because we agree on most issues. Is it still the same? Is there more agreement than disagreement, or would you say it's become more difficult?
It has become more difficult since the German G20 presidency. On the G20 level, this has clearly to do with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, ever since we did not manage to land a full-fledged communiqué. Nevertheless, what we did manage to do under the Brazilian presidency last year, for example, was to negotiate most of the text on the substantive issues, meaning the global economy, meaning climate issues, meaning international debt situation, meaning MDB reform issues. All these were fully agreed upon, but what we did not manage ever since was an agreement on the so-called geopolitical language and the role that the Russia's war of aggression plays for the development of the world economy, which we believe is still one of the most pressing issues, as it contributes to fragmentation. So in the end, I mean, that maybe sounds a bit theoretical. What it means in practical terms is that when you have 10 pages of documents, 9.5 pages are fully negotiated, and that means, for instance, that in India 2 years ago we spent 60 hours of negotiations on the ground, 27 hours without sleep, because you asked specifically on this, and we managed to agree on very substantive issues, but the presidency could not call it a communiqué, which is the technical term for fully negotiated, but it's then a chair summary or chair statement. But that is maybe for connoisseurs. I hope I'm not boring the audience to death.
Oh, no. I think it's really fascinating to understand how such negotiations really work, because we look at the media, we look at journalistic pieces about it, but to have us look behind the scene is always fascinating.
Maybe if I may add on Ukraine specifically, now in Banff at the G7 finance ministers meeting, we spent hours after we arrived, after a long flight in the late afternoon, we started negotiations at 10 p.m., which then was, 4 o'clock in the morning for me, and we discussed it until 6 a.m. Berlin time, and we couldn't agree on anything. And then, thanks to the leadership of the Canadian presidency, a very experienced finance minister, he managed to land the communique over the ministers' lunch at the following day, where ministers meet without anyone else in the room. And sometimes you need these moments to get over the finish line.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is it better to feed the negotiators well, or to keep food away from them?
It depends.
It depends. So deadlines can also sometimes be helpful.
Wine helps.
Yeah. So one of the issues, which also might be a little bit tricky in the G7, but certainly also G20, is the future of multilateral organizations, right? The World Trade Organization, IMF, World Bank, and some others. Is there still a consensus on this in the G7?
There is a clear consensus that the Bretton Woods institutions, meaning the IMF and the World Bank, but I can also talk about the broader MDB system, are unreplaceable. If we did not have these institutions, we would need to invent them. And I think also US colleagues agree to this. And we had the spring meetings of the bank and the fund in Washington in April, and in the margins of these meetings, US Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, gave a speech particularly reassuring the international community that the US is also committed to play its role in the Bretton Woods institution. I mean, there are no other institutions who, like the IMF, is committed to help countries in balance of payment needs and do the macroeconomic surveillance, and the World Bank with a different mandate to help developing countries and do that in a very effective and efficient way. And the World Bank committed last year in an MDB roadmap, which was agreed on G20 level, to aim for a better, bigger and faster approach in doing so. And the US is also committed to implementing this roadmap. I mean, there's no denial that on issues such as climate change, it is hard to make meaningful progress with the US, and we very much regret that the US has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement. Nevertheless, there are certain aspects like mobilizing private sector money, mobilizing domestic resources, and broadening the donor base, especially when it comes to climate finance, which also the US can still support, to my understanding.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, in the G7 cycle this year, was there a trade minister meeting? No. So they pushed that towards the finance ministers?
Yeah, one could read it that way. And so I think finance ministers have shown that they can be successful. I mentioned the communique a couple of times. Leaders did not agree on a communique. They had some thematic standalone declarations on topics such as artificial intelligence, the need to coordinate fighting wood fires, because it's difficult to name climate change. But finance ministers are still a very workable format, I would say, and also cover some of the trade issues.
And do you also talk about new tech issues and digitalization of the financial sector and also cyber threats? Are these also piece of the package?
Yeah. Cybersecurity issues in the financial services sector has been an important issue in the G7 finance track for a number of years now. We have a G7 working group on experts level, and colleagues get together and they do crisis exercises across countries and stuff like that. And that also involves the central banks and the supervisors. And then on AI is also a relevant topic for finance ministers, given that is a macro-critical technology, as we call it. And finance ministers very much focus on the potential developments AI may have for the global growth, for labor markets, but also for distributional aspects.
And what is your favorite topic, personally? The tariffs?
No, definitely not. I'm personally very much interested in the international debt agenda and in what was an idea of the German G20 presidency is the compact with Africa. Meaning finding ways to engage with Africa and to foster structural reforms in Africa and to boost growth in Africa. But it's a new idea and not the classical way of doing development finance.
There was a brainchild of the G20, German G20 presidency, right?
Exactly.
And very much steered by the
Exactly, and we are actually working very closely with the current South African G20 presidency to foster this initiative further.
Maybe, because we already have to come to an end, because I know that you do have to use those shoes to run off. Could you give us a glimpse into what we can expect for the G20 summit?
Oh, it's early days.
What is that, 3 months away?
Yeah, it's 3 months away. So the South Africans are doing a good job in challenging times. We have the second standalone G20 finance ministers meeting coming up in Durban in mid-July, and I think after the second finance ministers meeting, I would be in a better position to give an outlook on the summit.
And until the summit, you don't get any vacation?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
In August.
Oh, nice. How nice. Last question for you.
Yeah.
You're working at the Ministry of Finance, being responsible for financial issues in the G7 and the G20 also. To have that kind of job, Do you have to have a Affinität, a love for numbers and calculations and balances, balance sheets? Are you a numbers person?
Shall I be very open?
Yeah, please.
I'm a trained lawyer, and I have a department of 175 fabulous colleagues, and I think 120 are economists, and my next life I'll study economics.
So get to those number crackers. Thank you very, very much also giving us a glimpse into your own personal life and preferences, but also a look behind the scene how the G7 and the G20 works. That was fascinating. Thank you very, very much. And good luck with all the next summits.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we also take a quick picture.
My sneakers.
Yeah, I need those. Vielen Dank, das war super. Ja. So, we now have another coffee break of 30 minutes, and then please rejoin us again, because this late afternoon, evening, we are going to have a fantastic format, an Oxford-style debate. And if you haven't seen that in the past, you are into a treat and a ride. We will have two teams who are going to compete with each other, and we count on you as audience to be here, because it will be your job to first say with which team you are siding more before the debate starts, and then we will ask you again afterwards if one of the teams has swayed you in one direction or the other. And we are going to talk about AI and war. So it's not an easy topic and all not black and white, but we want to tease out the differences. So don't run away, use that coffee, but please come back. We have a fantastic panel, 4 people on each side. So thank you so much, and give our speaker a big applause.